Hello class, this is a lecture on the process paper, also known as a how-to paper or process analysis. So it's a how-to do a how-to. Understanding how to put a process analysis together is useful because it'll help you assess when you find instructions somewhere to see if you have someone who knows what they're talking about and they're actually good instructions. It'll also help you understand a little better of what to look for when you're reading something. And again, this is the most common type of writing done in colleges and on the job because again, you're learning how to do something and you have to read about it, probably the first step. So there are actually two types of process analysis, and if you want to get technical, three. There's how something works as well as how to do something, and I would imagine if you're working with a specialized piece of equipment, machinery, or whatever, how to do your job includes how to fix the machine. So process analyses have to be accurate. They have to explain how to do what it is they're telling you how to do clearly and effectively. If I'm stumbling a bit here, it's because this kind of boggles my mind. I don't understand why you would find a how-to that doesn't tell you how to do it. That shouldn't exist. It's not a how-to. If we could be a little sneaky about what we're talking about, certainly there's lots of information on the internet on how to do stuff that's, shady or criminal, but part of this information out there is wrong, so you don't necessarily be able to achieve your whatever nefarious goal. It's more to make you not hurt people while, it gives the investigators and police enough time to track you down. So, there is that. You have to, in a process analysis, clearly explain things and have the steps easy enough to follow. A how-to has to be complete. You can't say part one of how to bake a cake is mixing everything together and next week we'll tell you how to put it in the oven. You must also be sure that the reader can do what it is you're telling them, and this will inform how in deep you go with your terminology and definitions. But it depends on the process itself. In more advanced processes, you might not need to define and explain everything. But certainly in introductory and basic level stuff, you'll want to be sure and give the reader, or rather, not give the reader the benefit of the doubt and explain yourself fully. If it's being done as part of an assignment, you'll have to explain more of it than not, because obviously you're writing to show that you understand the topic, not writing it to tell someone how to do what it is you want them to do. For an essay about how something works, again, you must clearly explain each step in the process, and especially if it's a very complicated system, you don't want to leave out those easy to miss steps. Again, the reader must understand and be aware of such things, and since this is a type of essay, probably more likely to show that you know the process and understand the device, machine, or whatever better than not in preparation for actually using it, you're going to want to, if you're doing it for a grade, be more detailed than not. Again, the step must be complete. You need to say everything the reader has to do, every place to get materials, so on and so forth. You might also specialize by giving local information or considerations for your topic. Obviously, go beyond just saying look online to find everything you need. Make sure your thesis is clear. Usually this is just spelling out what it is you're explaining and the steps of the process. Categorize, materials, methods. If you're thinking of building a computer, it might be, where to buy the parts, how to get them, putting together the hardware, then installing software, running updates, stuff like that. Now, you won't be taking a position necessarily with a process analysis, but your position could be, and you could do this for the intro as well, why the reader should know how to do what it is you're telling them what to do. Obviously, this essay will be organized chronologically because you have to do some steps before others, and it could actually get quite dangerous, building a roof before you have the walls to support it. You might also then need to explain to your reader early on what background information or history is necessary to understand the process, and again, especially special materials and special considerations. you will have to determine the appropriate level of detail for the reader. This is where you will fill in the blanks and try and really help walk your reader through the process with the right tone and be as informative as possible. Now, don't overwhelm the reader. Don't give them too much information or too many steps too fast. You want them to be deliberate, and even if you tell them read the whole thing before you do it, you can probably assume they're going to work through it, and so keep that in mind. You'll want to use descriptive language rather than sensory details and figures of speech, and that is to say, clearly help your reader see or compare how things should be to how the box of parts is in front of them. And when I say figures of speech, I'd say, okay, well, think of like changing your oil in your car. Oil gets poured into your car. It's, you know, a golden brown or light brown, or even like a little thicker than, or more, you know, darker than that, translucent. But when it starts dripping out, or when you check it on your dipstick, it's black and gritty. This is because it's, you know, getting burnt up, and it's also, you know, getting filled with dust and particles that are also getting burnt up. And so that keeps it all from being able to lubricate your car's engine effectively. It's still sticky and slick though, but you wouldn't really describe, you know, it's time for an oil change when the car and the oil in your car gets black as the darkest night or something. And another important step is to anticipate trouble spots and offer solutions. Again, speak to your experience with the process, and so you know early on, before the person can make the mistakes, what mistakes are possible at every step of the way. So me, I think of when I've assembled some furniture for my house, a bookshelf or a barbecue pit. You know, some earlier attempts that I've made, you know, they weren't very sturdy or stable because I didn't know what I was doing. So I think the next time I was going to build something, I'm going to like tighten everything real tightly. You know, make sure all the screws are tight and real tight. And this is not how you do carpentry or whatever. You're supposed to tie everything just right, as much as it needs to be tightened. If you're forcing something, you might not be having the right size screw, right size hole, or whatever. And if you know, tighten things too tightly, you'll strip the screw either on the teeth or, you know, at the head. So that's just one thing that could go wrong. Be aware that if you don't know anything that can go wrong, you're probably not familiar enough with the process. Very rarely you might have to integrate a process analysis into another type of writing. There's this one book, Like Water for Chocolate, where it includes a number of recipes into a story. So make sure that then you're talking about, you know, the whole process more briefly. Make it clear why you're including what you are including, and mention specifically that, oh, we're talking about how to do this. Again, if this is in a story, it's not describing each step that the person makes, the ingredient and whatever, and the recipe would have to be separate, and then it could be described how the person did it or whatever. But again, make sure that after you've done explaining how to do something, that you stop and you tell the reader that you're done and you're finished and you're moving on to the rest of the essay. So here are some closing writing tips for process analysis. Each step, if it's a single sentence, maybe you should go in a group of related single sentence steps, but try and look for natural spots to stop so that your reader can pause, look at what they've done, and so they don't get overwhelmed by all the details. Consequently, a more complicated procedure might then require a paragraph for one step or just a few steps. Again, be sure to be in control of the pacing and give your reader the natural places to pause, to stop, to reread what they just were told to do, as well as to line up waiting periods with, you know, possibilities for what they could do during that time, or, you know, let them know one's coming up soon, or it'll be down the road or down the line, because that way they don't have to like worry about doing the whole thing in one sitting. So far as intro and conclusions are concerned, you have a number of options. History, if necessary, as well as modern developments for the conclusion, and the history for the intro is a good way to kind of make you sound pretty informed about your topic and concerned. It's a part of most jobs to, do training and stay on top of the state of the art. You might give background of the information, the process, or of yourself. You might explain why it's important to know the steps. Everyone should know a few basic auto maintenance techniques, checking oil, changing tires, that sort of stuff. You don't need to overhaul or rebuild a transmission, but you'll save quite a bit of money, or you can make the decision if it's worth saving that money to do something yourself or hire someone else to do it. You might need to establish why you're the expert and why we should be talking to you when we want to learn how to do something. And finally, at the end, you could offer places or things to do for the reader to learn more if they're interested and they feel accomplished and want to go on to the next step.